If you have a dog or a cat nearby, just look at them for a second.
Yeah, or if they aren't in the room, just pull up a picture of them in your mind.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Just think about how completely they rely on you. I mean, you fill the food bowl, right?
Yeah.
You provide the warm bed.
You're essentially their absolute universe.
Yeah, you really are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want you to imagine something wild. What if you opened your front door right now, took that indoor, pampered pet, and drove them out to the middle of a vast, dangerous wilderness,
Oh, wow.
and then you just drove away?
That's a tough image.
It sounds completely unthinkable, right? Like, it sounds incredibly cruel.
It does, because it goes against every single human instinct we have when it comes to the animals we care about.
Right.
I mean, our immediate biological drive is to protect them, to shelter them.
Keep them safe?
Exactly. To keep our loved ones as close and as safe as possible.
Which is exactly what makes today's deep dive so incredibly fascinating, because we have this really spectacular set of source materials in front of us today.
We really do.
And they take us all the way back to the wild plains of Kenya back in the 1950s.
Yeah, a completely different world.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
And we are unpacking the true, basically world-changing story of baby lioness named Elsa.
A very famous lioness.
Yes. And the reason we are doing this is to explore a really profoundly difficult question. Like, what does it truly mean to love an animal?
It's a heavy question.
It is. Is love about keeping them in a cozy, safe bubble, like we do with our pets?
Right.
Or is it about doing the hardest, most painful thing imaginable just to let them be who they are actually supposed to be?
I think that is the perfect way to frame our mission today because, well, the two conservationists at the center of this story, George and Joy Adamson, they had to answer that exact question.
They really did.
And the path they chose, it basically forced them to completely redefine the relationship between humans and wild predators.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we need to understand the environment we are talking about here.
Yeah, setting the scene is crucial.
All right, so picture 1950s Kenya. We are not talking about some fenced-in park or a local zoo.
Yo, not at all.
We are talking about the vast, baking African savanna. Just endless stretches of tall yellow grass.
Acacia trees everywhere.
Yeah, intense heat. And honestly, intense danger.
It's a harsh place to live.
It really is. And right in the middle of this unforgiving landscape, our sources tell us that a tiny, totally helpless lion cub loses her mother.
Just completely orphaned.
Right. And if she's left alone out there, she wouldn't last a single night.
Yeah, the reality of the African bush is just brutal for an orphan. But this is where George and Joy Adamson step in.
Right, they worked as wildlife wardens.
Exactly. So they rescue Elsa, and they also rescue her two sisters.
Oh, she has sisters.
Yeah, 3 cubs in total.
Yeah.
But this is where the story hits its first major crossroads.
Okay.
The Adamsons actually decide to send Elsa's 2 sisters to a zoo in Europe.
Okay, that makes sense.
But for some reason, they decide to keep Elsa.
Wait, really? Just her?
Just her. And they make a decision that, well, at the time, was virtually unheard of. They decide they are going to raise this baby lion, not to be a captive pet, but to eventually be released back into the wild.
And I just have to pause here because this immediately sets off warning bells in my head.
Oh, sure.
Because think about it. If you find a tiny, shivering stray puppy on the side of the road, your first thought is round-the-clock care. Right?
Absolutely. You want to save it.
Yeah. You give it milk, you wrap it in blankets, you protect it. And let's be honest about zoos. Wait, zoos are safe, right?
Generally speaking, yes. Very safe from predators.
Right. Especially if we are thinking about this from a place of pure physical safety.
Huh.
I mean, in a zoo, Elsa would be fed every single day.
She'd have a guaranteed meal.
She would have shelter from the blazing sun, the pouring rain. She would never have to worry about a hyena sneaking up on her.
0 predator stress.
So why wouldn't they just send her to the zoo with her sisters? Or, just keep her as a giant purring house cat? Like, why choose a path that guarantees danger?
Well, what's fascinating here is that to understand their choice, we have to talk about a concept called anthropomorphism.
Anthropomorphism. Okay, that is a big word.
It is a bit of a mouthful, yeah.
Let's break that down for everyone listening. What does that actually mean?
It simply means projecting our human feelings, our human desires, and our human traits onto an animal.
Okay, like treating them like people.
Exactly. For example, if you see your dog shivering slightly in the winter, your human brain automatically says, oh, I am cold, so my dog must be miserable.
Right. I should put a thick sweater on him.
Yeah. we project our desire for coziness right onto them.
That makes total sense.
So in Elsa's case, the human instinct is to look at a zoo and see safety, comfort, regular meals. But the Adamsons realized something really crucial.
What was that?
A lion is not a human. A lion's soul is not fed by four walls and a guaranteed steak every night.
Wow. So they recognize that physical safety just isn't the same thing as a good life.
Precisely. I mean, they looked at that tiny cub and realized a life behind bars, even a perfectly safe one, would mean her natural instincts would be completely shut down forever.
That's so sad to think about.
It is. So they valued her freedom over her guaranteed safety. They chose to endure this incredible stress and, honestly, heartache of trying to rewild her, purely because they believed it was better for her spirit.
That is just a staggering level of unselfishness.
It really is.
Like you were taking on all this anxiety so the animal can be free.
Yeah.
But, I mean, making that choice is one thing. Actually executing it is a whole different story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because now they have this pampered, hand-raised lion living in their house. And they have to somehow teach her how to be the most feared creature on the African plains.
Right. And that transition is not just difficult. According to the notes from the Adamsons' own diaries, it was a spectacular, monumental failure for a very long time.
Wait, really? See, this is where my assumptions were totally wrong.
How so?
Well, I always assume that a lion is just,
Right. Right.
Like you put them in the grass, they smell a gazelle, and boom, nature takes over. They just know what to do.
Yeah, that is definitely the Hollywood version of nature.
Totally.
But the biological reality is much more complicated. Because Elsa was what we call an apex predator.
Meaning she is at the very top of the food chain, right? Nothing hunts a lion.
Exactly. Or, well, at least nothing should hunt a lion. But the problem was, Elsa didn't know she was an apex predator.
Oh, no?
Yeah, the sources detail how she failed at absolutely everything required to survive.
Like what? What did she do wrong?
Well, she didn't know how to track down food. She didn't know how to camouflage herself in the grass. And most shockingly, she was completely terrified of other wild lions.
Wait, what? She was afraid of her own species.
Utterly terrified. She'd hear them roaring in the distance, and she would literally run back to the Adamsons' camp to hide.
You're kidding.
No, she saw herself as part of the human pack. There's actually this incredible anecdote in the source material where Elsa gets chased by a warthog.
A warthog. Like a pig.
Yes, a warthog. A wild lion would have seen that as lunch.
Right.
But Elsa saw it as a terrifying monster and just ran for her life.
Okay, that is almost comical, but also deeply tragic when you think about her actual survival chances out there.
It really highlights the danger she was in.
It makes you realize that being a wild animal isn't just, like, magic. It's a set of highly specific skills you have to learn.
Think of it kind of like a smartphone.
Okay.
When you buy a phone, it comes with certain capabilities built into the hardware, right?
Yeah, camera, screen.
But to actually do anything useful, you have to download and install the apps. Elsa had the hardware of a lion, the claws, the muscles, the teeth.
Scary roar.
Exactly. She had the latent biological instincts downloaded, but she had never installed them.
Okay.
She had never watched a mother lion crouch low in the yellow grass. She didn't know you had to stay downwind of a herd of antelope so they couldn't smell you coming.
And because she didn't have a mother to teach her those lessons, the Adamsons had to do it.
They had to step up.
They literally had to take her out into the bush and try to simulate hunting. But man, here is the part that I really struggle with.
The feeding.
Yes, because they had to watch her fail. Picture your indoor cat or your friendly dog suddenly having to find their own food in a massive jungle.
They'd be completely terrified.
They would.
Yeah.
And the Adamsons had to watch her try to hunt, stumble around, miss her prey, and just end up exhausted and starving.
It was incredibly hard to watch.
I can't even imagine. Think about your pet again, guys. If your dog was lost in the woods, desperately hungry, and looking up at you with those big, sad eyes, you would hand them a bowl of food instantly.
In a heartbeat.
The Adamsons literally had meat back at their camp. So is it cruel to just stand there and watch her fail when you literally have food right there in your hands?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it is the ultimate test of restraint.
Restraint, yeah.
Because if we think about how learning actually works, not just for animals, but for humans too, we know that the most vital lessons come from the struggle.
Okay, yeah.
Like, If a young child is trying to learn how to tie their shoes and they are crying out of sheer frustration.
Oh, yeah, the meltdown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The easiest thing for a parent to do is just reach down and tie the laces for them. It instantly stops the crying.
Right, it fixes the problem right then.
It feels like the compassionate thing to do in that exact second.
But the child learns absolutely nothing. They just learn that if they cry, someone else will solve the problem for them.
Precisely. If the Adamsons had stepped in and handed Elsa a chunk of meat every single time she looked hungry, or every time she got scared by a warthog.
They would be tying her shoes for her.
Yes, they would be hitting the uninstall button on all her wild instincts. To truly give her the gift of freedom, they had to endure the deep emotional pain of watching her fail.
They had to let her sit with that hunger.
They did, until her biological hardware finally synced up with her environment.
Wow. So they had to act like a true mother lion. Because the mother lion in the wild doesn't bring her adult cubs food forever, right? She forces them to participate in the hunt.
And eventually, that grueling, agonizing process actually starts to work.
Yes. This is the turning point in the source material. After months and months of stumbling through the grass, getting chased by prey, and running back to the camp, something finally clicks.
The app installs.
The app installs. Elsa actually tracks, stalks, and catches her first real prey.
It's a huge moment.
I can only imagine the sheer elation the Adamsons must have felt watching that happen. Just the relief. She finally figured out how to survive.
It is a massive triumph, but it's a triumph that immediately ushers in the most heartbreaking phase of the entire journey.
Oh, right.
Because once that wildness is unlocked, the door to her old life with them begins to close.
Yeah, the success brings on the final goodbye. According to the historical accounts, there comes a very specific, totally unforgettable day.
This is a powerful scene.
It really is. Elsa is out in the bush with the Adamsons, and a wild pride of lions appears on the horizon.
Real, fierce, fully wild lions.
Exactly. And Elsa is standing right there, right between the humans who raised her and the wild predators she used to be terrified of.
This is the exact moment everything has been building towards. All the failed hunts, the terrifying warthog chases, the deliberate withholding of food.
It all comes down to a single choice.
Yes.
I mean, imagine standing in Georgia Joy Adamson's shoes in that exact second. Let's make it deeply personal for anyone listening right now.
Okay.
Imagine taking your dog, the one who sleeps at the foot of your bed every night, taking them to the edge of a forest, and a pack of wild wolves emerges from the trees.
Oh, wow.
Your dog stops. They look at the wolves. Then they turn their head and look back over their shoulder at you.
That would be gut-wrenching.
Right. They look at the leash in your hand. They look at your car behind you. And then they turn forward and they run off with the wolves just disappearing into the dark trees forever.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? Like, how do you even walk away from that without crying? How do you accept that the animal you poured your entire heart into just chose the wild over you?
Well, this raises an important question about how we view love and ownership, because you have to entirely reframe what just happened.
Reframing it how?
Well, human nature tells us to feel rejected in that scenario. We naturally think, I gave you everything and you just left me.
Exactly. It feels like a betrayal.
But true belonging is not about possession. Elsa didn't run away because she didn't love the Adamsons. She didn't leave because she was ungrateful or because her time with them meant nothing.
No.
She walked away because her wild nature was finally unlocked. She finally understood who she was born to be.
She finally recognized her own kind.
Yes, she was a lioness. Her biology, her instincts, her spirit, they all belonged to the African plains, not to a canvas tent or a human house.
Right.
So the Adamsons didn't lose Elsa on that day. They successfully returned her. They achieved the impossible goal they set out to accomplish when they first refused to send her to that zoo.
Oh, I love that. It's a graduation, not a rejection.
Exactly.
But man, even with that perspective, walking back to a quiet, empty camp without her must have been devastating.
It had to be.
And usually in conservation stories, when you successfully release an animal into the wild, the story ends right there. The curtain drops. The animal is gone, the humans go home, and you just hope they survive out there.
Right, that's normally how it goes.
But Elsa's story shatters that assumption entirely.
It really does. And this is why the story of Elsa became a global phenomenon. Because the bridge between the human world and the wild world wasn't actually burned.
No. Here's where it gets really interesting. Months and months go by. The Adamsons are still out in the reserve, just going about their lives.
Living out in the bush.
Yeah. And then out of nowhere, something almost biologically impossible happens. Elsa comes back.
It's incredible.
The lioness who walked away into the wild returns to their camp,
Mm.
but she is not alone.
This is perhaps the most stunning detail in all of our source material. She returns with cubs of her own.
Oh my God.
3 tiny, completely wild baby lions.
When I read that, I genuinely had to pause.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about what we know about wild animals, especially apex predators.
Right.
When they have babies, they become fiercely, violently protective.
Absolutely. A wild lioness will hide her cubs in the thickest brush she can find. She will attack anything that comes within 100 yards of them.
Right. Don't mess with the mom.
Exactly. Her absolute prime directive is to keep human beings far, far away from her vulnerable offspring.
But Elsa proudly walks out of the bush and essentially brings her new kids to visit their human grandparents.
It's just wild to think about.
She allows the Adamsons to see them, to interact with her. I want everyone listening to just imagine that for a second. Imagine a wild animal trusting humans so much that she introduces her babies to them. She overrides thousands of years of survival instincts just to share her cubs with the people who raised her.
It is a breathtaking validation of everything the Adamsons endured. I mean, the emotional core of this entire deep dive is right there in that reunion.
It really is.
If they had given in to their human urges years ago, if they had said, it's too dangerous, let's just send her to the zoo in Europe, Elsa would have survived. She would have eaten well.
Yeah, she would have been safe.
But she never would have been a wild mother raising wild cubs under the vast African sky. She never would have experienced true freedom.
The story of Elsa was eventually turned into a book and a famous movie known as Born Free.
A classic.
And it resonated so deeply around the world and continues to resonate today because it perfectly illustrates the most difficult, unselfish kind of love. The kind of love that says, I'm willing to endure pain, worry, and heartbreak purely so that you can have your freedom.
They gave her the ultimate gift by teaching her how to leave them.
It is just an incredibly powerful reality check for how we view our relationship with nature. So let's just take a breath and recap the incredible journey we've covered.
It's been quite a ride.
We started in the blistering heat of 1950s Kenya with a tiny, helpless, orphaned cub whose sisters were shipped off to the safety of a cage. We watched the Adamsons battle their own human instincts, forcing themselves to watch Elsa fail, starve, and literally run from warthogs so she could figure out how to survive.
The hardest part.
And then we witnessed that miraculous breakthrough where her biological app finally installed, leading to her courageous choice to join a wild pride.
A true graduation.
And finally, we saw her return, bridging the gap between wild predator and loving family member by introducing her cubs to the humans who saved her.
It is a complete transformation, one that was really only made possible through immense human restraint and just deep, selfless love.
So to you, listening to this deep dive right now, the next time you look at an animal, whether it's your dog sleeping on the rug, your cat watching the birds out the window, or even a magnificent, powerful animal pacing behind the glass at a zoo.
Yeah, really, look at them.
I want you to remember Elsa. Think about the massive difference between being kept completely safe and being truly wildly free. Think about what kind of life that animal is truly meant to live.
And as we wrap up our exploration today, I want to leave you with one final, brand new question to ponder on your own.
Okay, let's hear it.
We talked a lot about the moment Elsa walked away to join that wild pride. We know she made the choice to go with them, but think about the moments immediately after she walked away into the bush.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
What happened next?
Exactly. We know how hard it was just for her to learn to hunt a gazelle. So how on earth did a solitary lioness who smelled like human soap, who grew up sleeping on a canvas cot, and who used to be terrified of her own kind, how did she actually convince a pride of fierce, deeply territorial wild lions to not only spare her life, but to accept her as one of their own?